So today I've come down onto the Somerset levels to fish one of the local canals and use one of my favourite methods, which is fishing with spinners. It's a very underrated method which has come back into fashion over the last few years, but in fact I've been doing this method ever since I could fish. It's great on venues from lakes, rivers and canals, and today, as you can see, it's perfect conditions as well. It's slightly overcast and we haven't got too much sunshine. I bring an array of spinners if I'm fishing a venue like today, due to the fact that you've got different depths. Further down the canal there, we've got only 2 or 3 feet, whereas if we go up here by the weir, we've got around about 5 foot. So it's important to have different weight spinners with different size blades so that you can actually fish to different depths. As I'm going to start fishing down there in a moment, I'll start using a small lightweight spinner with the nice paddle tail blade there, so that I can just bring that across the top of the weed and I can put that in the line of the sight of any pike. However, if I'm going to start fishing over here, just in behind the weir, I'll use a thin willow leaf blade, which will get down a bit quicker, and I can just bring that quickly across the bottom and hopefully get a bite or two. Whenever I go out spinning for the day, I'll always take a wide selection of spinners, and that's because you never know what you're going to get when you get to the river, the canal or the lake. It could be coloured, it could be low on water, it could be weedy, so it's important to have a selection of spinners so that you can just adapt your fishing to suit the conditions. Stealth plays a very big part in my fishing, especially lure fishing and really all types of fishing, as it should really. Today, here on this particular stretch, it's 2.5 foot of gin clear water. So in fact today what I've been doing is stealth fishing for the pike, because with Polaroids, which are absolutely vital in all types of fishing, you can actually cut through that glare on the water, and I can see 90% of the water today, which means I can actually see those pike which are led up. I can walk past them casually along the footpath just as they're used to, from dog walkers coming past and things like this. There's no danger to them there. They're used to people coming along and every now and again pausing. But where the actual skill is to use your Polaroids and slowly creep past them so that you can just put a cast down in their line of sight, not too close. You don't want to be trying to touch their nose with it or anything like that. 1 foot away, 2 foot away, just so it's enough for them to bolt out and hit the lure. And without Polaroids, there'd be absolutely no chance of me being able to do that. Also, I will look at the way I approach the bank as well. Especially on the Somerset levels, it's very, very peaty, but sometimes on canals it can be very gravelly. If you're on lakes and it's wooded, there can be lots of sticks on the floor and things like this. So it's very, very important to actually not just focus on the fish you're trying to home in on, but to actually look where you're putting your feet, because you only need to tread on a stick or kick some loose gravel and all of a sudden that fish has bolted. Or maybe there was a fish underneath your own bank which you hadn't even seen while you were looking at a smaller fish. There was a huge fish underneath the bank and you just see a big puff and water sprays up, and that might have been the fish of your dreams, but just from not being stealthy, that fish is gone and you've blown it, and it's a case of the one which got away, which we don't like to talk about. So today the equipment I've been using is one of the new Warrior 9 foot 10 to 30 gram rods. They're quite new on the market, but I've been lucky enough to be using one for quite a few months now, and they're very, very versatile. I've used this for, like today, small pike, perch fishing. I've used it in a recent competition which actually I caught a 27-pound pike in as well. I've also used them for wrasse later on in the summer down on the south coast for wrasse fishing, and they're fish for all species. It really is an all-round rod. Rated for 10 to 30 gram, like I say. It's light enough to use on the canals, yet going up to 30, it's still got the backbone in the rod to enable you to use some bigger lures as well. So it's a real all-round rod, and it's perfect for using a selection of spinners we've been using today as well. It's a 6-eyed rod with a lovely cork handle as well, and it's got a very fast tip to it as well, very responsive. It's got a very quick action. I couple that with a 2,500 size reel, which again makes it balanced, because if you are fishing all day, holding the rod all day, if it's an unbalanced outfit, it can get quite heavy in the hand, whereas this is the joy to use. It really is. It's a fantastic combination. And coupling that, I'll go on to the torque braid. Today I've got the spool on, which has got 10 pounds, which is 0.10, which is light, but there are no snags at all in this canal, and that braid enables me to cut through the water. And I'm using quite light spinners today, as it is quite a shallow venue as well. I'm using bright yellow braid, which may look like it stands out, but in fact it's vital to be able to see the drops of the lures going through the water and just look for those little telltale bites as well. So it's really, really important to use that kind of diameter braid in snag-free venues. But if it was snaggy, I obviously would step up the break-in strain there as well. So whenever I go out lure fishing, it's vital to be using a balanced setup. And the 9-foot 10 to 30 gram Warrior rod, coupled with a 2,500 size reel and the 10-pound torque braid, is absolutely the perfect balanced complete outfit. And it's a joy to use, and it's something which I'd use on all of the venues I fish. A tactic which I've used for quite some time now in my fishing is to use the lure as an actual echo sounder, which might sound strange, but it actually works. So whenever I target a new venue, lake, canal, river, it doesn't really matter where it is. I won't know the depths through the whole entire venue. I might know it's an average of 5 foot or 8 foot or something like that, but there's bound to be deep holes and shallow bars and weed beds and things like this. So what I do is, when I cast out, I always keep my lures on a tight line, because you can quite often get taps and hits on the drop, which can tell you fish are there, but also you can get takes on the drop as well. So it's really important to keep your lures on a tight line as they drop through the water. And as they are dropping through, I'll actually tap the rod. For example, if I did 10 taps, it may be 10 foot. So rather than guessing how deep it is, I'm fairly accurate, to about half a foot accurate of knowing what depth that is. And if I'm on a river and it's 10 taps, you know, for half a mile, and then all of a sudden I come across 15 taps, I know I've come across a big feature, I know I've come across a deep hole for whichever reason, and it's more than likely going to hold a few fish. And that can work with shallow features in the summer, etc, etc. So what I do then is I'll tap down, and I'll tap down to maybe 14 foot. So now in that deep hole, I'm bringing a lure or spinner through that gully, and I can quite often pick up fish there, whereas before I might have just been bringing it straight across their heads thinking it was 10 foot all the way along. So it's a really, really good feature to use on any venue. So lure fishing, as you can imagine, involves an awful lot of casting, and with spinning, which is a very, very simple method, all you need to do is clip on a spinner, cast out and reel it in, and you will catch pike and perch and chub. However, to catch more pike and perch, I find it's really important to change the way you retrieve your lure. So what you're trying to do is trigger an attack from a pike or a perch. So what I'd do is I'd cast out, and as I'm bringing that spinner or lure through the water, I might pause for a couple of seconds and let the lure or the spinner flutter through the water, or I might speed up the retrieve, or I might even slow it down, or maybe even wobble in the rod tip. All of these things can make this piece of metal have a little bit more life to it, which can actually trigger a response from a pike. One of the other important things I find when I'm bringing in any lure or spinner is to actually keep looking behind it, because quite often pike and perch, they may not be feeding, but they'll quite often maybe just follow just to have a look, just to see what's happening. So bringing it in and just slowly keeping the depth on your spinner and bringing it around in a circle, and maybe in a couple of little pools in front of your own feet, can quite often get a take underneath your feet, which is absolutely electric. With that in mind, if you were to get a take underneath your feet, you need to think about the drag. Using braid has no stretch whatsoever. I would never use mono for lure fishing. Where braid absolutely outperforms it. There's no stretch, it helps you set the hooks, the diameter is amazing on it as well. But what you've got to remember is, because there is no stretch, so if I was to hook a pike just here, any size pike will put a huge strain on the braid, on your tackle, and on the hook hold as well. So you need to get the drag so it's set enough to set the hooks, but soft enough to enable that pike to hit and be able to run. Otherwise you'll just find that you can pull out a fish underneath your feet, and that's the last thing you want after seeing an amazing take right underneath your feet.